to look to our consultants, our engineer, our planner, to give us an explanation for the applications that are going to be in front of us. Look to the applicant for their comments and explanations that they have. The commission oftentimes asks questions during that process, and then we bring it back and deliberate and make a decision. The first thing is an administrative item, which is the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. And I've got a couple, before you make, I've got a couple of changes, but if you're going to make a motion. But go ahead, Craig.
Yes, I'd like to move that we adopt the minutes as submitted here today, for the meeting held November the 11th.
And
the
I have a couple of comments.
Oh,
I have a couple of suggestions here on changes. So it'll be, maybe, will you consider my changes?
I certainly would.
Okay. Under, where it says 3376 Quarton, I think we're missing a date in the first line.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know what that date is, because I didn't have the letter. So where it says review
has
letter, you got it?
Yep.
Okay?
Thank you.
So that belongs in there. And then, on page 4, the second paragraph, I don't know that this says they bought that house in 2016. I don't know that they said they owned that house for 10 years. Maybe they did. Did they?
That is from the recording.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's just the one change. So,
We appreciate the chair's proofreading ability and spirit,
I'm providing some value.
indeed. And with those amendments, I hereby recommend that we adopt the minutes of November the 11th, our meeting there too. It says the November 11th.
Oh, November. I'm sorry.
That's all right, Chair. You're thinking
Are
about,
you going to second that?
I can't. I wasn't there.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the first item is the Planning Commission will consider the request of the Cranbrook Manor condominium for approval of a new entrance sign for the development. And Eric?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Eric Peach with Giffords Webster, planning consultant for the city. Our first item for consideration is a property located at 1018 Stratford Lane. We have 3 sign applications on the agenda today. The first being the one here. This is for a sign replacement. The property is Zone B1 for residential. It's located along Woodward Avenue on the east side near the southern boundary of the city. So the existing identification sign is shown to be Cranbrook Manor. This is located approximately right at the property line of the property. So it's not within the public right-of-way of Woodward Avenue, but it is within the 25-foot setback, which is a standard requirement from the ordinance. So depending on the Planning Commission's consideration today, if approved, it would go before the City Commission for a variance request for being within the setback. So that was the pre-existing sign. This is what's proposed. It's just to do an update to the existing sign to be placed approximately in the exact location of where the existing sign is located. So what does that look like on a survey? This is the dimensioned layout of the property. So Woodward Avenue is here. The property line is shown in pink. And so as the survey states, there's a sign located here. And as you'll see on the site plan in just a moment, that's exactly where the proposed one's going to go. And then just for reference, the red dashed line is where the 25-foot setback lies, and so to comply with the ordinance, the proposed new sign would have to be behind this red line here. So on the site plan, again, this is that esplanade that you see, the entrance lanes to the south, and then the exit lanes to the north. There's dimensions on here showing that the sign won't be any closer than approximately 30 feet, 10 inches to the Woodward Avenue driving lanes. But again, it'll be approximately right at the property line, so not to encroach into the public right-of-way, but it will be within the 25-foot setback here. So black background, gold letters to match and meet the ordinance requirements. There will be some ground-mounted lighting fixtures shown here that face the structure and the signage, but otherwise a pretty standard entrance sign. It'll be approximately 4 feet 5 inches tall on a base that's 1 feet 6 inches tall. And it'll meet the requirements for the foundation underneath the ground. And again, this is a residential identification sign. So for the B1 zoning district, this is a permitted sign. It just requires Planning Commission's approval for consideration of the layout on a site plan. And then for the sake of not meeting the 25-foot setback, if approved by the Planning Commission, we'll go to the City Commission afterwards for approval. I can take questions. If not, the applicant is here. We have met with the applicant in the past to discuss the project. So there's a little bit of history with coordinating prior to getting to this point. But the applicant is here if there's any questions for the applicant as well.
Any questions for Eric? So I have a question.
Yes.
What I'm trying to figure out, and I just did this afternoon, I looked at the property map, the county map, and so it shows the property, and sometimes these are off a little bit, but they're not off usually a whole lot. So this is what I see as the property line, which is different than, I mean, this is in the 20, I mean, the whole issue here is the 25 feet.
Yes.
And so this shows us the property line on the property map. And so, and maybe this is for, I guess, the applicant, because
Yeah, so when it comes to the dimensional review of encroachments into a setback, we would always ask for the survey, because the survey, once certified and sealed by a certified surveyor, would be the document that we go off of, and
I
so
get it.
that's what this one would be. So, you know, we can look at, when we met with them pre-submittal, we would have access to the parcel map from the county, which we would use that. But ultimately, once an application is formally submitted, we would have to go off of the survey. So that
Okay.
would, all the dimensions would be based on this document here.
because the rules say the property line or the right-of-way. It gives us the choice. And I'm just looking at it, this is in the same location as the existing sign, and it's an upgrade. And this is a different line, so, okay. I guess, Leah, do you have comments? I don't. You don't?
I just have one question, maybe it's a public safety question. I noticed that the original sign looks pretty much breakaway, easy, if somebody hits it. This has got a big concrete chunk at the bottom, which if it's in a location that maybe we're saying is okay, it's close to the road, any concern there at all?
It's consistent with other signs that are quite a bit off the road. I think if it was on closer in the right of way towards the curb, it would be a concern, but by the time you run off the road, you could hit a telephone pole or a tree, or
I agree.
there's a lot of things you can hit, and it's consistent with other signs, how they're set back along Woodward.
So I, to that point, thinking back when that car hit the Cranbrook sign and it took forever to get it repaired, is there a way to address the responsibility? I mean, I assume it's the HOA who would be responsible for fixing it if it was hit. I mean, is there anything that we learned from the Cranbrook situation that can ameliorate any concerns about what,
Oh, that they take the responsibility to fix it because we are giving them this variance.
Well, I do know why that occurred. It was an insurance issue with Cranbrook. And so I did some kind of stay on top of them over time, but they were battling with the insurance company because the cost of it was a lot more than the insurance company was willing to pay. So they decided to wait and fight it. That's what took so long.
okay. And the city has no real ability to push that along there or in something like this?
I mean, I think if they can show that they're diligently trying to get it done, that's probably the most appropriate way to do it. Taking any action towards it would probably just slow the whole thing down anyway.
The sign's clearly an upgrade.
Yes.
No question.
Along with that thought, if the county has to come in and do some work in that area within the 25 feet, it probably should stipulate that it's up to the Cranbrook Manor to repair any work or damage that they do tearing up. Because that could be a can of worms.
Though this is on their property too, so it's not like it's in the right of way. Just-
Yeah, but they could still
Yep.
come in and tear up somewhere.
Any other questions, comments for her? Okay. Someone here from the applicant?
I'll say a couple words, and there's not much to say. Eric did a great job as usual. He's been doing it a while. But basically, it's a pretty straightforward sign. It has a concrete base, much like that, but very clean. It has a granite slab with some gold lettering. So of course, we follow the ordinance, and we want to have kind of a sophisticated, low-key look. And to answer your question about Cranbrook, that sign, even though it's concrete, is very sophisticated. It has special mix. It has little grommets, and if you look closely at it, it's a very sophisticated piece of work. So I'm sure that's going to take a lot longer than, it was simply forms with concrete. But of course, the association, they always, it's hard to get united sometimes, but associations would definitely want to make that place look good, and they wouldn't go around. So I don't think there's any problem with them repairing it, whenever a problem occurs, because they maintain it. And it's like you say, it's on a property.
Michael, can you look at this?
Is that our package?
No, this is what's on the property maps, the county's property maps.
Okay, got it offline.
So, I mean, this is right off, so this shows the property line
Yeah.
here, which sort of actually makes sense.
Well, that helps us then.
Well, it does. Actually, this wouldn't even be a requirement.
Yeah, well, if we go 25 foot from here, I think we'd still be in the asphalt, I think. 'Cause this is
Actually, I don't know, I
17.
don't know, I scaled it off. It was like, so, I mean, is this?
I mean, that's great. If we can go by that, I'd love it, but.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know what your survey said, because it's,
The survey is shown here with the package. Like here.
well,
So it's the last sheet.
no, I saw this, but it wasn't really, I don't know. I guess as I looked at this, these,
Yeah, right here, that's a survey. And you can see,
so I really couldn't pick up, as I looked at this, it
Yeah.
wasn't clear to me what I was
yeah,
looking at.
there's the island. And I believe that line, I can't see my glass, but that line is what we're talking about. Let's
So
see.
I wasn't
Yeah, see
sure.
the sign is right there touching
Yep.
that line? Yeah.
Yep, so I wasn't sure this is the property line and maybe the property line, I don't know.
That's what we're using as a property line there. And of course, this is even in our favor right here, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we just thought we'd get a special survey because of the nature of this, complexity of it.
okay. All right. was my only question.
Okay.
Other comments on this?
I think it looks great.
Is there anyone else in the audience that has a comment on this application? Okay. Yes, any other comments or a motion or?
I'd move to approve the application, for this, site plan variance, right?
Site plan approval.
Site plan approval, subject to, ultimate review and approval by the city commission.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you very much. Should be in the spring.
Actually, when I looked at this almost looked like, I thought I was like looking at a rendition of the Cranbrook sign a little bit. It's got, you know, that base.
A little influence in there.
It's really good. Very
Yeah.
handsome.
All right, thanks a lot.
So the next item is, the Planning Commission will consider the request of the property owner at 100 Bloomfield Hills Parkway for approval to install new building in-site signage.
Okay. The second of our 3 sign applications is located at 100 Bloomfield Hills Parkway, located just behind us here on Bloomfield Hills Parkway, up against the railroad and zoned O1. So I have included here a wetlands map. There's no real concern. It's just showing that there's some hydric soils where the existing building is located in close proximity to some wetlands area, but no major significant concern regarding that. And then just a zoomed in area that we can look at if we ever need to make reference to some of the surrounding area. So the request that's before you is for site plan approval of certain changes to some signage that exists on the property. So if you look at the first page of the report issued, that the applicant is seeking to install 1 new wall-mounted building sign and to repurpose 1 ground-mounted sign structure to use as directory signage. So as you can see, that existing ground sign is located right at the entrance and exit to the site, and then the wall sign will be affixed to the building along the western edge there to the front. And then our review of the site plan application determined that there's 4 different variances that would need to be considered by the city commission. Those are, number 1, to allow the use of an existing non-conforming ground sign as a directory sign. Number 2, to allow a wall-mounted building sign to be installed 32 feet above the grade in lieu of the ordinance required 20 feet. Number 3, to allow a wall-mounted building sign to consist of the name of a building tenant and a company logo. And then number 4, to allow ground-mounted directory signs to consist of company logos. So we'll get into the details of those as we go through the presentation here. So the proposed signage is highlighted in green. So, I'm sorry, there's wall-mounted address signs as indicated at number 1 and number 2. So the next few pictures will show that the building has existing address signs, which aren't specifically part of this application. They're just there for reference. Item number 3, this is the ground directory sign. The structure is there for signage, but to repurpose that requires approval and approval from the city commission. And then the wall-mounted building sign over in this location here. So this is the existing building. If you drive by, currently has no signage on top. Here you can see the reference to the address sign on the lower part of the building. What's proposed is a building sign, by definition, which allows for buildings to consist of a sign with the building's name or the address of the building. And so the only time a tenant name would be allowed is if the applicant could confirm and verify that the name of the building is also the name of the tenant. And that's not what you see here. Harness is a tenant. That there's also a company logo which is not allowed on building signs by definition. So what's proposed on top of the building is shown here, a sign plate or sign face that's 12 feet by 2 feet. And then dimensioned in here are the text lettering, which is 1 feet 8 inches by 9 feet 5 inches. And so the company name is Harness IP. So as part of the overall name, IP is kind of integrated into a company logo here. So the ultimate overall consideration is for a tenant name and for the company logo to be considered for approvals as well. So otherwise, the sign meets the dimensional standards for a wall sign. The fact that it's 32 feet on top of the building is one of the requests for city commission approval. Otherwise, the ordinance says that it would be limited to 20 feet. And then moving on to the existing ground-mounted directory sign, this is the existing structure shown here, so they would just like to repurpose that. It's within the median of the entry and exit of the site. So what the proposal is to include tenant names of the building, which is what directory signs are allowed to use as. But a directory sign is not allowed at the property right-of-way or at the property line. They're intended to be for pedestrian or vehicular use that's further with interior to the property, so either affixed to the building or in close proximity to the building. So that's another consideration for the city commission. And moving on, just to give you some dimensional perspective of the sign plates on the existing sign structure, 30 inches by 18 inches with the names of the tenants. These are just some placeholders showing where the 2 additional tenant names would go in additional to the Harness IP sign that we have proposed today. And then again, just for reference, showing the address of 100 on the side of the building and the wall here. It's approximately 6 feet off the ground. And there's no special proposal for these. They're just shown to be existing. So again, it's Planning Commission's task to approve the site plan changes, taking into consideration some of the dimensional challenges or items that are proposed by the applicant that, if approved by the Planning Commission for site plan, would go to the City Commission afterwards for consideration. Questions?
The sign in the right-of-way on the way in, low one, that's just blank currently?
Yes, this would be a picture of the existing sign, I believe, the applicant.
Sorry? He used to say Pulte. Oh. Okay. Prior tenant, obviously.
Any questions specific to the building or the site itself? The applicant is here to answer any questions that I'm not able to.
Can you remind me, is the Plunkett Cooney grandfather? Is that,
Not familiar.
It is.
Is it?
it is?
That goes back like 25 years.
Yeah.
They put it up, then they changed the color. So
It's got the name and the.
Pardon me?
It's got the name and the logo.
Yep, yep.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but what's the reason that it needs to be 60% higher at 32 feet than the 20 feet?
So, yeah. Let us know who you are.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Chris Kajoyan with the Kajoyan Companies, joined by Scott Reynolds, our architect, who's worked on the actual technical details of the signage. So this building and then the next agenda item are been in our portfolio for many, many years. Pulte called this their headquarters for many years until they moved to Atlanta. So the reason for this signage change is obviously we're trying to re-tenant the building now that Pulte's been out. The reason, to answer your question with the height of the signage, if you see the facade, there is glass for the vast majority of the building. It's, in our opinion, not up to the standards of our Class A buildings and Bloomfield Hills to have something hanging down to support it over the glass. So you'll see in Troy, a lot of times they hang it from the parapet of the building so that the sign is lower and you see those bars. It's not a good look. So we'd rather actually put it in the stone on the top of the building so it looks like it's meant to be affixed to the building and it's not something that's going to get swapped out every 2 years just hung to the top of the building. And to answer the question, it did say Pulte Homes on that monument sign on the drive-in, so that was the previous tenant of the building. We do struggle with this building not being on Woodward, where people come down Bloomfield Hills Parkway. You have the 3 office buildings kind of right next to each other where they're not sure if it's this one or the one next door. And we get that feedback quite a bit, that people actually go to the building next door and then come back to our building. The 100 is carved into that stone on the corner, the lower corner of the building. It's very hard to see unless you know it's there. So our intention here is to be able to put, the 3 largest tenants in the buildings, their name on that monument sign, so when people are driving by, they know, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be turning in. So it is that wayfinding for the vehicular traffic, and it really, in our opinion, is the only opportunity within the site to do that, to actually capture people and bring them onto the site. And that's what it was previously used for.
When people use their GPS, I know with my house, it sometimes takes someone to a different house. Does the GPS not take them to the building?
I think it depends on what service you use, whether it's Waze, Google, Apple. But because the drives are in pretty close proximity to the building next door, and we actually have 2 entrances. One's kind of a back service entrance that's further, I believe, west than this one. We actually had a showing with Harness before they signed the lease in the building, and they went to the building next door. So that kind of started the issue in their mind. They've been moved in for just over a month now, and they are asking for this just to make sure that people know where their law firm is located. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time and consideration this afternoon. One other component that I'd like to add is the motor court, as previously designed with the building that you see in the background of this image, is kind of the first thing you see. So it's kind of a pedestrian-oriented access to the building, and most sequence of events for access and understanding where to go with this building happens immediately once you get off of Bloomfield Parkway onto the property. What's unique to this building also is that over 50% of the parking for this building is actually covered and is underneath the parking deck and underneath it. So there's some of the unique challenges that we run into of why we're looking for that directory component. There isn't one pedestrian entranceway, let's say like a grand entry. The motor court, can be that entranceway, but typically people experience the site and then walk through the front door after they're looking for that directory component and vehicle access.
Let me, if I could, offer some comment here, because I think it's going to be important, not only for this application, but for the next one. So the city's sign ordinance, in terms of its requirements on location of signs on buildings and their placement in front of buildings, you can have a building sign or a monument sign. And the city's colors, all of those issues have been in place for many, many years, 30, 40 years, actually. In some cases, the colors, 50 or 60 years. In the city, in terms of expecting that the signage on buildings wouldn't be a focal point, was part of that design. So if you think about the city generally, few of the buildings have much signage at all, because the requirement is you can call it a building, it depends. It could be a building sign, it could be an identification sign, depends on the use. If it's a country club, for example, it's an identification sign. Condo development, it's identification sign. Here, it's a building sign. But in all cases, it's been to keep a reserved approach to signage. So if we think about signage in the city, and think about some of the more prominent buildings, the buildings at the southwest corner of Long Lake in Woodward, nice buildings. They both have a sign it's a limestone sign with the name of a tenant, but it's also the building name. And the placement of those, if you look, they're probably, I couldn't tell you exactly, but, you know, they're probably 15 feet off the ground or so. I think they're 6 by 6 in terms of size. In the building that you guys are in, you've got 2 names on that building, and they're not on the building. They're right at the entryway. And that's sort of an exception, but I don't really want to go there at this point. We'll just let that go. There's a new building that went up in, just north of Northern Trust. That gentleman spent millions of dollars built. He's got a beautiful building, and he came to us 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and needed signage on his building. And we explained to him, you can have a building sign, you can name your building, or you can put the addresses there, and the directory sign is up by the building. And the rest of the buildings in our city are that way. Now, Troy is a much different animal, and most of the communities are, in terms of allowing signage higher on buildings. The lighting is different. Here, though, we've set the standard that goes back 30, 40, 50 years. And here, to allow something like this would unravel all of that precedent. It would change the character of the community, because the first thing someone's going to do is see you do this, and they're going to come back and they're going to say, well, the guy at JFK who has this beautiful building, he's going to come back waving his hand and say, wait a second, 3 years ago I was in front of you and you told me I couldn't do this, and now you let them do it. And the whole thing would unravel. And so, I'm just one guy, but I'm giving you some history. And we actually rewrote this ordinance. We cleaned it up about 10 years ago. And it's been firm and it's been followed. And so the placement of a sign on a building in the location that you're proposing is just totally out of character. It's not consistent with the ordinance. And I'm just one guy, but I can't see the city wanting to change a precedent that's been in place for decades. In this case, I'm familiar with that building. Been in there many times when Pulte, I mean, they didn't move out, they moved out in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, they had more of an operation, but then left in 2020. How much of the building does this one company take up?
So they're in just around 50,000 square feet, so it's almost a full floor. And what we're struggling with, you know, we've owned this building, we built this building, so we've owned it for a long time. We're fighting against, you know, people wanting to move into Birmingham because they want walkability. And, you know, we have 2 of the largest office buildings in Bloomfield Hills, and we're trying to attract these financial services firms, law firms, to plant their flag here in Bloomfield, and they're very proud to do so. And Harness was very proud to sign this lease and move here. You know, they want that identity, though. What comes with a 50,000 square foot lease or being an anchor tenant in a building where someone drives by and they say, oh, that's the Harness Dickey building. That's where their office is. And so it's hard for me leasing a 200,000 square foot office that's been empty for 5 years when I can say to a, you know, Dykema or someone that's coming along and is in the market, hey, sorry, you can't put your name on the building, but they can go to Birmingham and do it, which they're going to pay 3 times the rent. So we're trying to offer companies a great opportunity to be in a great area that, you know, I grew up in, I respect, and I think we tried to put together a respectful signage package that does meet, you know, the colors and the intent of Bloomfield Hills and the prestige of Bloomfield Hills. And I think there are a handful of examples throughout the city that do not conform with the signage. There are a couple newer places that have monument signs that are not conforming to my understanding. And I think it's, again, we try to take a approach here that was, we're not trying to put multiple names on the building. It's going to be the Harness Dickey building and just Harness IP logo on there. And then adding 3 plaques to the existing monument sign that's there on the road. So I understand what you're saying. We're not trying to be Troy where there's 8 names on a building. Even if you go by our buildings in Troy, we don't have multiple names on the building like that because we do think it looks cheap. It makes the building look bad. But I'd ask, the JFK building north of Long Lake, I know they've struggled to lease that building. They just signed their first large lease in there. I can't imagine the stress that they're under right now, with that being new construction. So I think being able to put, one name on a building and a monument sign or directional signage on the road, you can keep it with the standards of the city, as I think we have done, but still allow us to be competitive against the neighboring cities when we're trying to recruit tenants.
So why not, you've got a monument sign, why not just put their name on the monument sign? I mean, I'm not sure you're gonna be I don't know what anyone else is gonna say, but I can't imagine us changing the height on a sign. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 exceptions, and they're grandfathered in, and they go back years and years, and there was a particular reason why those were grandfathered in. So you solve your problem if you just take the monument sign and put Harness on it. And so they've got their naming rights, and then you can put a directory sign up closer to the building, and then up closer to the building, you can put the other tenants, and, anyone that comes into this building, having been in that building many times when Pulte was in there, you walk in, there's just a little bit of parking over on the right hand, that's where your guests are gonna, your visitors are gonna come in anyways. And it's gonna be known as the Harness Building, and they'll be happy, that tenant will be, and then your other tenants, they'll say, hey, it's the Harness, but we're in the Harness Building, and then they'll walk up and they'll see the directory of the tenants. That solves your problem here. And then you're in compliance, but why don't you do that?
Yeah, I think the reason we're coming forward asking for the 3 names on the monument sign is Harness is, 50,000 square feet of a 200,000 square foot building, and we're actively talking with groups to take, other large portions of the building. So from a landlord's perspective, I want to lease this and I want it to be vibrant and have, hundreds of more cars coming into that building every day that are eating lunch in Bloomfield Hills, and supporting the other local businesses. And I think being able to have signage, if I have someone take the 3rd floor in the building, and it's 60-some thousand square feet, and I say, sorry, I don't have any exterior signage for you. It's a very tough argument to make. And I understand, some of the other signs are grandfathered in, but they've been changed in recent years. And even across the street, the Dada building, that's a bit of a hybrid between a building sign and a monument sign because of the way that's in there. And I understand it's been in there for a long time. It's literally carved in stone on that building.
And as you raise those, so you're gonna ask me to counter what you're saying, because that was part of those site plans. So Jonah had both of those buildings, then they sold one, but part of the entire approval process was to put those 6-foot by 6-foot signs, those limestone signs in there. So, starting to pick off other examples isn't really going to help you, not if you've got solution. And the premise is you've got a building, you should name the building, then, and someone's in that building. I mean, the whole office market, it's the JFK building. I mean, some of their issue, some of it's rates, right? I mean, there's a lot of different issues that affects that. But
I would say the office market right now, the Class A market is strong. We're doing very well. Our PNC Center in Troy is 550,000 square feet. It's 90% leased. And we've grown that about 20% over the last 3 years. So it's very strong. Our Pinehurst building, where our headquarters is, we're at about 88, and we're about to be at 94%, with a couple leases coming in there, smaller leases. So we're very bullish. I mean, we've been paying on an empty building for 5 years, paying the taxes, paying the debt service. Stone Ridge is a half-empty building that we're talking about next that we've been paying on, because we believe in Bloomfield Hills and we believe in these buildings. So I understand what you're saying, and I think if there are other creative solutions, if the height is the issue and the name could go down on the lower wall where the 100 Bloomfield Hills Parkway logo is, if there's some way to help work with us to be able to attract these tenants into Bloomfield Hills, I think it would be appreciated, not just by ourselves, but by other landlords. And by no means am I asking to change the character of the city and plaster signs everywhere. I'm asking for one name on a building and 3 small plaques, so people know where the building is. So I completely understand what you're saying. I'm just wondering if there's any other solutions that would be acceptable.
Are you referring to the 100 right here?
Yes, ma'am.
I like that. I like the sign being there.
Yeah, so and I'm just thinking off the cuff, my team might not be happy with me, but I think where the 100 is shown on that lower wall, I mean, if that was a compromise where it's not up on the top of the building and so it's not in your face when you're driving by, I think it helps us to tell the story that, hey, this is Harness's headquarters, this is their building, and it still gives me the ability on that directional sign to try to recruit other tenants here in Bloomfield Hills.
I've been on the planning commission approximately 20 years or so. We have always stuck to not setting precedents.
Yep.
And it's going to be our mantra for a long time.
Is
Yeah,
the
I understand.
monument sign only supposed, the initial monument, when you drive in, only supposed to have one name on it?
yes. And it can't be the name of the tenant unless the building is also named by that
Right.
tenant. So
Got it.
this was the Pulte building.
So are there other opportunities if you, I'm assuming that Harness isn't on the floor where the 100 is carved in the building, right? They're higher, I'm guessing.
Correct.
I'd be curious to know, in that stone space, are there other places where you could potentially put, not insensitive to what you're trying to do here, again, you're trying to lease space, I get it. And if you've got 50,000 square feet, you kind of want your name on the building. I completely understand that. But is there any place else besides that, I don't know, 40 feet there? Is there another version of that on the other side of the building?
See if we have
The other side is the
Yeah, there
railroad
is
track.
the upper walkway is up kind of on a plinth, so there is some landscaping in front of it. You don't have as great a visibility on the right-hand side as you do on the left. As Chris mentioned, again, we came about this to develop a tasteful solution, right? And we're not trying to disrespect an ordinance or anything. I'm a planning commissioner myself for many years, so I get the hard work and the challenges that come forth. We're obviously trying to merge, kind of what was there before, the building that we're working with, and obviously the tenants that we're looking at today. Obviously our team would have to kind of come together, but lowering that, to the lower, plinth of granite where the 100 exists right now, just as an address sign that was original to the building, that's obviously something that we're open to as a solution. It's just both this and our next building, we've always developed unique properties, right? I mean, a 200,000 square foot building isn't the same as, one sign for a 20,000 square foot building. And understood that we don't want to overcrowd our buildings by any means either. So that's why we're trying to find tasteful solutions, especially with, the Bloomfield Parkway, this address and this building being off of a primary drive. It's not directly visible, from a Woodward Avenue site or anything like that. So it's a little calmer of a street. So it's, you know, we felt that there was some, you know, maybe hardships there that set a little bit different tone than, let's say, something that's right at Long Lake and Woodward Avenue.
So I agree with everything the chair said. I mean, he said it exactly as I believe it to be. And we almost moved my firm to your building. It's a beautiful building. And I get it. You get a lot of space there. But you know, you started with the Pulte building, and, you know, I'm sensitive to getting lost between the various office buildings and which one is which. To me, that monument right there ought to say 100 Bloomfield Parkway, right? So that's unequivocal. We're going to that building. Now, in the southeastern corner, I guess that's where, as the chair said, primarily your guests are gonna come in. I mean, is there someplace along that location? And by the way, I don't know that I would ever, I would ever look up at the top of the building to see the tenant that I'm coming to visit. I just don't think that that's, I don't know, worthwhile. But along the southeast corner, is there something in that area that might assist you and your tenants to identify and you know, celebrate a 50,000 foot tenant, right? At the point where the guests are coming in, so they've come to 100 Bloomfield Parkway, they're directed back to where the guests are gonna park, and then there they see your important tenants. I mean, is that something that is?
Yeah, I think we could take a look at a pedestrian sign like that would help, you know, and see if there's a way. I mean, that will help once someone's already parked and is out of their car and is walking the building to confirm that I am at the right building. We also, inside the building, you know, would have an opportunity to do a directory sign that's, you know, on the wall there. I think, you know, maybe it's because I am in real estate and develop buildings, but when I'm driving around, I couldn't tell you the address of a lot of buildings, but I can tell you where, you know, XYZ company is located in Troy or in Birmingham or in Bloomfield.
Name it the Cajoin building. I mean,
you know, I think I'd rather see our tenants' names on it than ours. But I do think it helps people find things. I think it has that prestige of, you know, our core tenant that I want to see in these buildings in Bloomfield Hills is financial services and law firms, because the clients are living right in the area and they don't want to drive far. They don't want to go to Birmingham.
You may get a tenant who wants 100,000 square feet, and now you've already committed to Harness to do this, and then what do you do? I mean, I can't agree with the sign out front, the monument with the 3 tenants. I just can't see that.
It looks
So-
cluttery.
It's very
Okay.
cluttery. So how do you accommodate the potential good luck that you might get a 150,000 square foot tenant that comes in after Harness? You know, I don't know, it's a, you've got a challenge, I get that, and we really want to help you here, because Taubman's building is something's gonna happen there, and so, it's a beautiful building, and it has been sitting empty, so we want to help you, but I'm with the chair that, you know, these signage issues are unique to the city, right? We're not Troy, we're not Birmingham.
Yeah, just so I understand it, because I think Scott understands better than I do. So as of right, we're allowed to have one name on the monument sign if the building is named the Harness Building, for
Yeah.
example. So I could put Harness's name on the monument sign
Yeah.
as of right.
One name.
One name, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to go back to the drawing board and we'll let Harness know that, you know, it's not going to work as proposed. But, you know, I would just say moving forward, there are a lot of empty office buildings in Bloomfield Hills. There are a lot of those that are going to go back to the bank. I'm not saying our buildings, as if we've been paying on these for 5 years empty. But it's going to create a real issue. The JFK building, I know they, you know, like I said, Morgan Stanley's their first lease they've signed of any size in that building. They're struggling. And I think a little bit of signage, a little bit of help from the city to help recruit tenants out of Birmingham would go a long way. And I think it can be done tastefully. It's not going to look like a retail strip center with 10 different names on it. So I guess if there was ever a workshop or you wanted to solicit advice or you know, bounce ideas off of developers, I would love to come in and sit down informally and have those conversations and see what could help us out. It's a great city, and we want to see all these office buildings filled up and see, you know, the local businesses supported by people who want to eat lunch here and work here.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, and thanks. I mean, I think it's a good idea. But here now, you know, I think you've heard the concerns here. And if you do go revisit with Harness, I think they gotta take that logo off.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, even if it was, I know this isn't the case, but even if it were something as simple as, hey, they can have their name on the building, but there's no logos, because that's gonna impact the rest of the city. I think that would be a great thing to go back to them and say, hey, it's gonna say Harness, it's not gonna have your logo on it. And just for future, if we do workshop some ideas, maybe there's some consideration for that. You know, the name of a company, but no logo, keeping consistent with the color scheme. Just want to try to get creative here to help lease some office space.
Yeah, we just worked that through with the Kingsley, and they want
Yeah,
the logo.
yeah.
So, you know, I mean, we get it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
If they want to put names on that left side of that building, do they have the guidance that they need to know how big or small that could be, and how many or how few could be there? We talked about that as an option, I just want to make sure they're aware.
When you see I'm not sure which.
Where the 100 is currently.
So,
Right
actually,
there.
they're really not able to do that. Under the ordinance, what they're entitled to do is they have two types of signage. One is the building identification, which would be the name of the building, whatever that is. It could be 100 Parkway, or it could be the Harness Building in the case that you want to name it that way. The other is you can have a directory sign, which is smaller. This is like 20, you can have 24 square feet or so. The directory sign is going to be smaller, I think like 16 square feet, and you can list the tenants, and it's designed to be closer to an entryway, so that when you walk up to the building, so theoretically, I'm going to the Harness Building, someone pulls into the parking lot, then they walk up to the entryway, and you can have like a roster of tenants. And it gets complicated, I guess. I mean, look at your own building. Right now, you have it labeled as Comerica in Honigman. You've got a lot of other tenants in there. But, you know, those guys are taking up more of the space. And so those other tenants, they probably tell their customers, come up to the building that you see Honigman Comerica on. The Daughter Building, sort of the same way. You know, that becomes the identity of the building. And I think, as the other commissioners said, I think everyone wants you guys to be successful.
Yeah.
And, you know, balancing that out.
Yeah, no, I understand. I had a meeting yesterday with a prospective tenant that's deciding between North Troy, one of our other properties in Bloomfield Hills. My lease rate's $10 less in this building, and I can get really aggressive on tenant improvements. And I tried throwing a ton of money to say, hey, get in this building. It's a great fit for you. Put you right off the lobby, financial services firm. And they said, our one gating issue, we'll give up the covered parking. We want our name on a building. So luckily, we have another building in Troy that we can move them to. But we're trying to fill up this building right now. That building doesn't need any help. So it is a large issue.
Craig?
I think this building is one of my favorite buildings in the city of Bloomfield Hills. I'm also, Chris doesn't know this, but I was a tenant there, and I was a financial services company, small but mighty, but also an appreciation for monumentality, the sense of place, the beautiful art. This was a Ross Roy building, as you may remember. Chris, you were in kindergarten, but as I recall.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not. I flatter you. In any event, it's a beautiful place. Personally, I would love if you would consult with some of the architectural gurus that we have that come before us. There are people here, and we could name names, and I'm sure the chairperson could tell you, whisper the secret names of people that really have a sense of place and art and how it is to live here. I live just down the street from this place. Why did I come? Because it was one of my biggest clients, Ross Roy. You may remember the guy that bought all of the marble for that place, and the sense of the entry to the place and the art and the view and the sense. It's magic. And we don't want to screw it up. And I'm so appreciative as a taxpayer and also as a neighbor in this community that you have this building, you've not lost it to the vicissitudes of business. And it hasn't been, I know it hasn't been easy. I'm a business guy, and a lot of people here on the commission are business people. And we understand what you're saying. But stay the line. And it seems to me that I'm thinking about how I walked into the place for the times that I walked in and how I enjoyed the beauty of walking in. There's plenty of space in that entryway to be creative and come up with concepts that would appeal to your high-end financial service people that have the bucks that will pay the rates that you want to get, that you have to get to stay in business. End of preaching. I probably don't have a vote on this matter, but I probably will vote because I'm a former tenant. I don't know if I have to not vote, but we want you, you can tell by what everybody's saying here, we want you guys to succeed. And it's a beautiful building, but darn it all, we don't want a bunch of clutter. And yes, you got to sell your product, we understand that, but you should be so happy that Harness signed up. Good Lord, international global client, and congratulations. But don't give up, is my message.
So maybe some takeaway just on this building. Having signage that's up on the building like that, that's probably gonna be a non-starter.
Okay.
One guy's opinion, but I think,
That was my point too.
I think you're gonna probably find that's gonna be a common thread. The monument sign with the name of the building, you know, if you can focus on that, tough to start giving up things if you haven't come to the table with anything that's even sort of palatable.
Okay.
If you reach too far, it's like, bring me back something.
Okay.
I don't know if you understand.
Absolutely.
You deal with this stuff all day long. But that's probably a non-starter. You know what you can do with a monument sign. There's a requirement that you have an address on the building, which is where the 100 is. You got a big building. It is a beautiful building. I've been in it a lot. It's a nice building. So, I don't know.
May I ask, Walt, so they have the option to put Harness where the 100 is, correct? Or do they not? Does that have to be the number?
No,
They don't.
they don't.
They have to put Harness on the monument sign.
Yes.
Right. Or what they could do, you could put the address on the monument sign. And I'd have to think through this, but I think you could put the address on the monument sign, and then you could put Harness, like where that wall is.
Where the
So-
100 is, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, so
That was my-
basically, but I don't want you to take me to the bank on that.
Yeah, I think the
So-
other-
So there's a requirement that you have both an address on a building, and you can have a name on a building. So the building sign would, if you name the building Harness, that would be where the 100 is, and then you'd put the 100 on the monument sign. That might work. I think what you'd have to do, and I'd encourage you to do this, did you work with the city on this to try
Yeah, we
to?
did go back and forth, and one comment, the fire code states that we have to have the numerals on the physical building. So I actually think on this wall, if this building were built today, it wouldn't qualify for that, because I have some newer buildings that you have to have it on and that's a
No,
state
I-
issue.
I only
But, so I
say-
don't know if I could remove that.
Well, I know on the JFK building, the address is on the monument. So,
He's actually right, it's supposed to be on the building. The fire code doesn't require that.
okay.
What is the JFK building?
That's the
No, I
building.
know, but what, is he correct? Is the address on the monument and not on the building?
It probably had both.
I can tell you it's on the monument.
A lot of people will put something on the building where the standpipe is, where the fire department would connect their hoses to charge the sprinklers, so they know that they're at the right building.
I can tell you it's on the monument.
I'm on double secret probation, this is my first
Yeah.
year. This falls in the category of everybody fully reserving the right to retract what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But I do think that having the name there, as we talked about before, carved in stone, I think is a nice touch. I think it could be subtle. I think it could be elegant. I'm sure it would require some type of variance for what our rules and guidelines are. But I if I were a tenant in a 50,000 square foot building, I understand the importance of wanting your name on it. I get it, I do. I think having it carved in stone there, I think would be very elegant and very nice, in keeping with an IP firm, a law firm, a financial services firm. It's not like they want something that's gaudy and garish anyway.
Absolutely.
So to me, that seems to be maybe just a thought. I'm gonna stop talking.
No, I appreciate the feedback, and, we'll huddle up with our team and speak with the city and the consultants and work through some options and come back in front of you all. So I appreciate your time talking me through it, though.
Is there another place to put the number? I mean, is it possible for them to put the number near where the sprinklers are, or on the building, or?
Visible from the street.
Yeah, it'd be terrible to have it at the entrance. That would be,
I mean, yeah.
you can't have two.
Can we put the 100 up where the harness? No, I don't know.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's allowable in both instances. I think there's a height or an area requirement in which you cross the threshold in which you're starting to define it as signage and not address. So I think and don't quote me also, I mean, I do ordinances once in a while, but I don't know yours.
Right, so what Mr. Reynolds is referring to is the 100 on the lower wall is not considered a sign if it is within a certain dimension. So in the letters, we check the dimensions of the 100 and it does not constitute a sign.
Because they're so small relative to
Right.
the size of the
If it
building.
was a little bit bigger, then it would be considered a sign, so it's not part of the sign.
It's my understanding you can't have the street sign, the street number and the name monument in the same, on the building, right? You have to pick one or the other, but you have to have the number somewhere.
So if I understand it correctly, it was essentially you have the option to say, you're gonna use your area as a big number, or you're gonna use your area as a big name. And then beyond that, yes, by fire code and other things, you need to have the address somewhere, because that's just a fire issue, and obviously we want that probably, and the most likely, so, but it's that size requirement, because I did work with Eric and his staff, obviously reviewing this, and from our first submission to the second one here, we clarified how tall that was, how much area it was, and obviously it falls below that threshold. That was obviously installed originally to the building, maybe even today, it might be something that needs to be a little smaller, something different, but that's been carved in there for 40 years. But to the point, we were just acknowledging that because it could be considered both ways. But in this instance, we're obviously looking to name the building, versus it just be the an address number.
Little bit of added history, and I got this from, I can't remember his first name, the patriarch of the Young and Young firm. Roger and Todd Young's father. Who would that be, Amy? What was it? Don Paul. Don Paul. So he knew the city well. His office used to be in the Fox and Hounds and did a lot of architecture. As he explained it many years ago when we were talking about signage, the buildings in the city used to go by their number. So if you look at many of the buildings in the city, it's a number. And that's how, many years ago, the buildings were named in our city. Honestly, I can look at this building and I can see a bunch of options. I'm not gonna say them now because they would require variances, and I don't wanna promote something at this point that's gonna require a variance. I can tell you what the rules are. I can see options. I see that wall And I can see different things happening with that wall, but we have rules. There's not many exceptions that are granted, and in recent years there have been none. We've just sort of stuck to our precedent. Remembering you got a building name in a directory, and maybe you can sort of work by. This is going to be a different situation than your next one. At least here you have one entry. You know, your next building is more complicated because you got multiple entries. This is a simpler situation. So I think, you know, maybe go back. And to Commissioner Hostler's comment, what happens next week if the guy who wants 150,000 square feet comes back and comes to you and says, you know, where is my name going to go? You know, and you don't have to answer that, but it's complicated.
For sure. I'd rather have one tenant in the building. No one likes to move into an empty building, so I'm happy we have harness in there now. I think it's going to help us get some more people and more life in the building. And if it's a big enough company that wants to take a big enough chunk of space, we'll be back in front of you with them at our side asking for their sign. So we'll get more creative, and we'll work with the city staff and the consultants and see if there's some other options we can come up with.
Okay, so I guess there's two motions we can make here just to deny this. Are you coming back? Or?
I would ask that we have the opportunity, if you could make a motion to postpone, allow us the opportunity. We need to have a conversation with our tenant, you know, just so I don't believe if it takes it off the table completely, if there's a denial. I guess I'm just looking for that to still be able to work through this to find a solution. If you
resubmit.
Correct. Versus starting over. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to table this application.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
We appreciate the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
So, Eric, I guess you get to talk more about science here. No.
Okay, buckle up. This one's a little bit more intense, complex. So, another sign application located at 41,000 and 41,100 Woodward Avenue. Let's see here. So this is the site zoned O2, located at the intersection of Woodward Avenue and Opdyke Road, just north of where we're at here. This is the general layout. The site was platted as a site condominium, and our main focus for today's application and proposals is unit number 1, highlighted in yellow. This is the northern portion of the site. There's a unit 2 in the middle, a unit 3 in the middle, and then towards the point to the south is a smaller building as unit 4. I also just wanted to highlight that the limits of ownership, according to the survey, are identified in the yellow area. And so one of the things that we were contending with when we first received the application was whether or not the sign ordinance requires, or the standards are applied to the site as a whole, or if the standards could apply to each one of the units. And so we asked the applicant if they could provide some information regarding that. They've responded that the unit 1 is independent of the others, and that seems to match what the survey labels as a limit of ownership. So the ordinance standards as applied for this particular project is the site that's highlighted in yellow, which is unit 1.
So,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt you, but, so the reference to the condo plan 362, that is in Stone Ridge Office Park, that is only unit 1, that's that plan, that master deed, is that true?
It's a larger master deed for the entire parcel when it was originally created, but it's separate ownership per building on the parcel. So it legally is a lot split. So they're separate lots, they're separate It's just the mechanism to do that at the time was a condo association versus doing a traditional lot.
I just remember, and this is apples and oranges, but Unit 4 had, when it was transitioning to a new owner, there was issues with parking, and there was kind of a cross, not to use a cross reciprocal, but there were parking issues that flowed from Unit 3 to Unit 4, and it got kind of complicated. Does the signage issue have the same interrelationship with the other units?
No, so we actually own, to the north, which isn't plan north, the convertible area is the parking deck. So we own that as well. That's, the parking deck that serves our building. So the way we function in a condo association, wherever it is in the state, we own Unit 1 and the convertible area adjacent to it. So that unit has to self-sustain its own parking, signage, everything is specific to that unit. I'm going to confuse everyone a little bit more when I tell you that our buildings actually have two addresses, it's two separate buildings. But we're not tied into Unit 2 or Unit 3 for parking. We maintain our own parking lot. We can't park on their side, they can't park on our side.
So the general versus limited common areas, as far as signage is concerned, doesn't come into any analysis here that we need to worry about?
The only thing that is shared amongst the buildings is the retention pond to the northeast on the site. The signage between the building, the other units, it's not a shared allotment between them. They're considered separate parcels.
Well, but the parking there was shared parking
There
between.
may be between the other units, they may have an agreement, but if you drive through there, you'll see we seal and stripe our parking lot every year. So
Okay.
the darker black parking lot, that's what we own. They can't park on that, we can't park on theirs. So if 3 and 4 had an agreement to share parking,
Okay.
share costs,
So
that's
you're
separate.
telling us that Unit 1 is really a standalone for all purposes,
That's
essentially?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess not to throw a wrench in that, but we did have this issue with this other building. And I still had in my files the master deed. And according to the master deed, this building, I mean, you can look at this as a recorded document. This building, I mean, I remember this really well. I think I found all this as we ended up reviewing that other building. This is all within this master deed, if you want to look at this.
Yeah, no, it is within the same master deed.
And what happens, Chris, is the master deed has provisions for signage in it. I think ultimately, you've got a bunch of, this is gonna probably land in the same place as the earlier one did. But just so we're starting off with an accurate footing, so what you have is you've got all these buildings. This is your building here. This is building 2, building 3, building 4. All of these buildings are within a master deed. And all of these buildings have a shared common area. There's a limited common area, there's a general common area. And based on your master deed, both the limited and the general common area are defined as common area in the master deed. And under your master deed, it specifies what's permitted in the way of signage. And so the entire, when this was approved, it was approved as an entire site plan. And so all the pieces have to move together. Actually, all of the parking, in terms of the number of spaces, actually, and I can show you that, I'm not gonna go through it here, all of the parking is controlled under the site plan for all of the buildings. And according to this, you're responsible for getting the association's approval for any changes in signage. So you're gonna have to unravel all these pieces as you move forward in this.
Yeah, so we wanted to come to the city and understand what's possible and what we would be able to get through. The attorney that originally was involved in that deal, who was in his early 80s, Bill Barris, still works in our office, and is prepared to work through the documents with the co-owners. There's been multiple Unit 2s sold twice in the last 5 or 7 years, so there's been a lot of change. So he's going to have to work through with the association actually implementing those.
Was that Bill Myers?
Bill Barris.
Okay. Oh, I thought you meant from Dykema.
No, I'm saying.
Okay, because
on our side.
Dykema is the one that
Yeah,
drew
yeah,
this up.
yeah.
Okay. So, in answer to your question, Will, actually, this master deed does cover everything that's going on in these buildings. And they're all affected by this. And so that's all interrelated.
So even though they're saying that they're self-sufficient, they have plenty of parking, and that's their convertible area is all their parking, and
The bottom line
it's plenty
is-
for Unit 1, they all have a shared responsibility for the parking.
Right, so what Chris said, I don't know that that conforms with what I read in this master deed.
So I think there's a little,
And not only, this is not only my reading, Dirk went through this back then when this issue got raised, and this is one entire site, and all the parking, it's all tied together. I sense there was maybe a lack, I don't know how much everyone talks in terms of the people in the association, but it's all tied together. So, and I'm gonna leave that now. I think you guys need to look at that, because I think what your understanding of what you communicated to Commissioner Hostler doesn't agree with the master deed. Okay?
yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Okay? So go ahead.
Sure. So just to go back to when we initially received the application, that was our starting point, was to get some direction in terms of, does the ordinance apply to the site as a whole, or can we apply the ordinance to just Unit 1? And so there was some conversation with the applicant, and with the information that we have, with the statements that were provided to us, we began the process of review by focusing primarily on Unit 1. So if it's a different direction that we're required to go, that being the site as a whole, then we would just have to take what's being requested and apply it and redesign, reallocate it to go from Unit 1 to the entire site. So with that being said, I just want to lay out for the record what it is that the applicant is requesting. So on page 1 of our review letter, there's 6 items that are for consideration by the Planning Commission. The first being for one wall-mounted building sign to be on top of the southwest side of the building. Number 2, for a wall-mounted building sign on the top of the west side of the building. Number 3, one wall-mounted building sign above the back building entrance. Number 4, one ground-mounted directory sign at the main building entrance. Number 5, one ground-mounted directory sign at the back building entrance. And number 6, one ground-mounted directory sign at the main building entrance. And so, again, this site is zoned O2, and within the O2 zoning district, a site, that being, again, Unit 1, is allowed or permitted one building sign and one directory sign. And so that's why the layout of the 6 different signs within our review is determined, because that's in excess of those one sign each. So that's what's being proposed. There's a number of existing signs that are on the property now, most of which are being removed. Moving on from Planning Commission's consideration, there's a number of items that would need to be approved by the City Commission. And so moving on to those items, number 1, the City Commission would need to consider the allowance of 3 building signs in lieu of the 1 allowed by the ordinance. Number 2, to allow 3 directory signs in lieu of the 1 directory sign allowed by the ordinance. And then number 3, to allow 1 existing non-conforming directory sign to remain, with modifications. So that takes into consideration Unit 1 as a whole, but as it pertains to each individual sign, there's variance requests that would be required to be granted for sign 1, and we'll get into the details in just a moment, but I want to make the statements for the record that sign 1's request to allow a wall-mounted building sign to be installed 24 feet above the grade in lieu of the ordinance required 20 feet, and for sign 1 to allow a wall-mounted building sign to consist of the name of a building tenant. So moving on to a proposed sign number 2, its requests for variance would be to allow a wall-mounted building sign to consist of the name of a building tenant and a company logo. 2, to allow a wall-mounted building sign to not face Woodward Avenue or Opdyke Road. And 3, to allow a wall-mounted building sign to be installed 24 feet above the grade in lieu of the ordinance required 20 feet. And then of the last proposed sign, they would be requesting to allow a wall-mounted building sign to consist of the name of a building tenant and a company logo, and to allow the wall-mounted building sign to not face Woodward Avenue or Opdyke Road. So the layout of the site, as was stated, the building is in 2 different wings. 41-100 Woodward Avenue is the one that's closest to Woodward. 41-000 Woodward is the one to the east, closer to Opdyke Road here. The directory signs are shown in brown, and then the building signs are shown in black. So that's where the existing signs that are currently on the property are located. The layout of the proposed signs, there's 6 total, 3 building signs and 3 directory signs. So not to be confusing, it's a little bit jumbled here, but the applicant has a layout showing the numbers of the signs from the application standpoint, but we rearrange the order of the signs just based on their intensity or their significance on the site. So sign 1 is located here at the corner of the building. This is kind of the most prominent one. Sign 2 is shown here. Again, this is a wall-mounted building sign. Sign 3 is another wall-mounted building sign shown here. So the green are the wall-mounted building signs, and then the signs 4, 5, and 6 are the ground-mounted directory signs. So getting into the details of where these signs are located and what they're all about, the contents of them, this is sign 1. Again, this is this portion of the building that is closest to Woodward Avenue, so it has the most prominent visibility from the street. Again, only 1 building sign is allowed on this building, so that includes both the east wing and the west wing. The sign is not permitted to be above 20 feet in height. Only the name or address is allowed, similar to our previous conversation at 100 Bloomfield Hills Parkway. No tenant name, and then in this particular instance, there's no tenant name that's identified. So upon initial review of this application, we had reached out to the applicant to say this would likely be an issue because we would need to have the specific dimensional standards of the sign in order to have that to be taken into consideration. But they opted to move forward with just a placeholder at this point in time with the full intention of meeting all other standards of the ordinance in terms of the color, the size, and those types of dimensions. But as you see here, the sign is limited to 20 feet in height, and the space where the existing sign is, which is the address number, is approximately the same location. So they're asking for consideration to just make a replacement at that height on the building.
Do you show the 20 feet on that? Is it the middle section? Is that 20 feet?
Well, yeah, it'd be 4 feet shorter than
That's
this area. So
24,
it
okay.
would, yeah, this is
I thought it was plus
24.
24.
Yeah, so it'd be within these glass panels
Okay.
in that general area. So this is also sign 1, just from a different perspective. For dimensional sake, it's approximately 87 feet from the property line off of Woodward Avenue. And then the text down here just indicates that the sign, for all intents and purposes, is intended to meet the standards of the ordinance. This is where that sign would go, sign 1, and then this sign, the address, would be removed from the building but not replaced. And then just giving some zoomed-in details of the dimensions of the sign. Again, the issue is that there's no name at this point in time, but if the name that is eventually proposed there is not the name of the building, then it would be a tenant, and as we know, a tenant name is not permissible, so that would require consideration of a variance from the city commission. So it would be affixed to the building as standard. They did provide the details in terms of how it would be affixed to the building, and not showing the mounting details. Moving on to sign 2, this is the second of the 3 wall-mounted building signs. Again, only one is allowed, so this would also require a variance. It also exceeds the height limitation of 20 feet. And there would be no logos, as you can see here. I believe Nielsen is an existing tenant, is that correct? Yeah. But unfortunately, for this particular type of sign, a building sign, you would not be able to have the logo of the tenant. So this is just giving some different perspective. This is that large parking lot out in front of the building, so this is where that wall-mounted building sign would be located after the removal of these existing signs that are in front of the, would be requesting that sign. On the back side of the building, this is the third of 3 wall-mounted building signs. This is for the U of M Center for Reproductive Medicine in Bloomfield Hills. What's there today is the address of the building, which will be replaced with the sign on the right. This sign has a logo, the U of M Block M, so that requires a variance. But it is within the height limit, so there is no variance request that's required for that. But otherwise, there's, again, full intention of meeting the sign ordinance in terms of the dimensions of the block face or the sign face, and then the letters within. Moving on to the ground-mounted directory signs, again, only one is allowed, but there's 3 that are proposed. What exists on the building today is the address. That will be removed, as you can see here, it's no longer on the building. And then this ground-mounted directory sign will be installed in its place. And this is an example of the ground-mounted directory signs throughout. So this represents all 3, essentially, of the directory signs that will be placed around the building. Let's see, sign number 5. This sign, again, similar to the previous one, will be located on the back side of the building. Again, it meets the intention of the ordinance for directory signs, that being it's more interior to the property and is intention to show a list of tenants for patrons of the site. Let me see. Yeah, these are both sign 5. So again, just showing what's proposed for this ground-mounted directory sign. Sign 6, this is the third of the directory signs. This is, again, the front of the building next to the Nielsen Law Firm sign on top of the building. And it would have space for 4 different tenants. Again, the University of Michigan sign colors and the logo would require a variance. But it's just here to give context, of what would be included on the sign. So lastly, there's a sign number 7. This is a existing non-conforming ground sign. It'd be classified as a directory sign, but since it's non-conforming, it can stay, but there are some minor modifications that are proposed to it. I think it was to remove the word east, is that right? But to leave the address number. But anytime that you touch or make any modification to a non-conforming structure, it requires consideration for a variance. So, and then I just wanted to give these last few slides to show what's being requested of the 6 signs. Again, only 1 building sign is allowed and only 1 directory sign is allowed. So there's a lot of moving parts with existing signages, some being removed and being replaced. But ultimately, there's 6 signs being proposed in addition to the non-conforming existing sign. And then this is the list that I read off to you for the record of what would be required by the city commission for their consideration. What's on the top is for the site as a whole, that unit 1, and then pertaining to the individual signs that are proposed, those would be the corresponding variance requests. And then just for your reference, if there's any discussion on it, what are the existing signs on the property today? There's 4 on the west wing and 5 on the east wing that were identified. So again, the applicant's here to kind of get into a lot more of the details, but that concludes our review and what the Planning Commission is to consider today.
I just have a general question, and I guess this is directed to the city attorney. My understanding of how this office park was originally proposed and approved was this condominium and the site plan was presented to the city and all its machinations, and then it was approved. Master deed as being a part of that. In the master deed, the restrictions article, whatever it is, includes references to signs in the master deed that was part of the site plan that the city approved, requires that the association first review any request by a unit owner to modify, change any of the signage, and then that the association has to approve it. Has the city, have you looked at this, and do you have an opinion on whether, before it comes to the city now, to the planning commission for modification, that it needs to follow the master deed that requires the association to first address and approve proposed changes before those proposed changes come to the city for review and approval?
I have not reviewed the master deed at this time. Based upon the discussion, I think it's something that needs to be reviewed. To respond to the earlier discussion, a condominium is governed by the master deed. The terms of the master deed control the entire site, and it is very difficult for a master deed to break down the different individual condominium lots that are sold off. They'll break down what regulation on what area of the limited common elements, general common elements, and it will go through all the requirements such as for signage. So really, all this is going to be guided by the master deed for this particular condominium. So yes, it's going to need to be reviewed to get those rules straight.
Thank you. So, you know, I know you're here to get some understanding and guidance and start this process. It seems to me that it's being done in reverse, that as I interpret the master deed and what's being asked for, and as Eric said, you know, buckle up, that these requests are first apparently to be submitted to and approved by the association, even though it's evidently just related to unit 1, it's still by your own master deed requiring the association comprised of all the unit owners to review and approve it. So have you guys given any thought to that and why you chose to do it this way rather than following that process?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, I'm not an attorney, I don't have our attorney with us tonight that reviews these matters, so I will be consulting with him. I know he referenced the documents as far as the unit lines when the city asks a few questions back and forth. You know, what parcels actually ours, what do we control that's on the site? I have done a few master deeds in the last few years. I know they can be done any which way, so I'm not familiar with my ability in this to change it. I will ask our attorney. I know in other situations, we generally do not enter into a master deed unless I have the power as the developer to go association that's, holding monthly meetings. There's annual financials and things that go out, based on some shared elements such as their retention pond. So I'll consult with my team on that. I think I'd still appreciate to be able to have the conversation with you all and get some feedback on the signage. We submitted this nearly 3 months ago, so I don't want to lose another few months, going to the association and then coming back in, because I have tenants that are asking me, hey, what's possible? The University of Michigan's calling him twice a week saying, what's the status of their signage? And we told them, you're not gonna get a colored sign on there, not a chance. And they said, please do us a favor and ask for it. So I wanna manage those expectations with current tenants and prospective tenants, and to be able to tell them it's a non-starter, it's not gonna happen, we've already had these conversations. And I don't wanna have to wait 3 more months to come back in and have that conversation.
Yeah, totally get that, but, I mean, I think you can appreciate, nobody wants to waste time and energy in working through a lot of the details, only to find out that the association rejects it, right? Whatever is proposed here, and we go through and give you some, approval or not approval, here would be approve your application or reject it. Or do we have an advisory opinion? I don't know, but I'm just troubled by a review of the master deed that does what it says. And it seems to me, my opinion, subject to city attorney's guidance, that it looks like your association, and however it's composed, has a veto power over whatever may be approved by the city.
Yeah, and, we have a great relationship with the other building owners. There's one that's newer, as I mentioned, it's sold twice in the last few years. So I personally don't know them, but the others in the park, I would be shocked if they were not supportive of updating the signage, because most of those buildings are struggling.
Yeah, I mean, if we had a letter from all the other unit owners saying, hey, give our authority to Chris, good, but we don't have that.
Yeah, and that might also not be what's called for in the document. So that's, I need to have that reviewed, and I'm in agreement with that. But I would appreciate soliciting some feedback tonight.
Let me propose this. Let's give them a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
To Commissioner Hostler's point, I read through the materials that came with our packet, and what you explained at the early part of our discussion, and it doesn't follow what the master deed says. And the master deed governs this site. As Commissioner Hostler explained, this was one large site approval, except for the building on the south side, which looks architecturally different. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. But they're all within the same site plan. So once you change that, you're modifying a site plan. And so if you ask for relief on signage, the other occupants, the other building owners can be looking at that and saying, well, they're taking up all of our sign rights. I mean, you're asking now for a lot of added signs. And so there could be a general reluctance by a commission to say, well, if you want 3 additional signs that aren't permitted under ordinance, then they might come back and say, well, if we're going to get 3 signs for the entire development, why should you get 3 of them? So there's a lot of moving parts, but you've got to go back and look at this master deed. But I think we can give you a couple comments. I mean, generally, I think there's going to be a reluctance for the signage that's set higher on a building than is permitted by ordinance. I'm going to just rattle off a couple, and then I'm going to look to the commissioners to maybe give you a little bit of added feedback. So I think those are sort of like non-starters.
I would also like to add that the blue sign, I've been on this plan, lucky to serve on the planning for the last 8 years, 7 years. The blue sign is you can tell your tenant that I personally would not approve that.
So they saw the Chase Bank branch, and they said, hey, we want to ask the question. I told them there's a 0% chance, and it's U of M. They wanted us to ask the question. They know it's a no.
So the story there is that was a PUD. Chase came in, and they had there's a provision in our ordinance that deals with copyright, with trademarks. So that's sort of like a one and done situation, basically, is what you got. Just so you know, I think I shared with you, there's probably a story behind each exception. And so you raised that, that's the exception. So, but having it higher on the building, you know, you can come back with something, but probably not a good starting point. If you think I'm gonna negotiate by asking for the moon, and we're probably, but, question on the U of M, is that a single entry just to that unit?
For some reason, it does go into the rest of the building, but they're the only tenant that direct their clients there. The reason they do that, it's a reproductive health clinic, so they want the privacy of their tenants to be able to come in and not be seen by people coming into the other parts of the building. So they specifically tell their clients or patients, come park in the back of the building and come around the back so that you're not walking in and everyone's seeing you going to the reproductive health clinic.
I mean, if that was like a single, are they in there now?
Correct, yes, they purchased another practice, and they're doing a couple of minor improvements within the space.
Because if they had like a single entry, I mean, just as you're planning the space out, because you've got different entrances, if that was just for that one facility, you know, then you're starting to talk about hardships or that kind of thing. Why don't you guys go with any other comments you have?
So I come back to, we have rules and regulations, we have guidances, and they've been in place for a long time. And so people that build houses here, people that build buildings here, people that buy buildings here, they come into this knowing full well they're public. You know exactly what they are. And so I think it's incumbent upon the people that are either developing properties, with all due respect, or people that are building homes, as we talked about in the past, you have to fit within the guidelines that exist. And it's not to say that we can't make a tweak here or a tweak there, but to say that we're going to increase the number of signs by 200%, or we're going to increase the level of a sign by 60%, or to say we're gonna allow color when everything is black and gold, I don't mean this to sound as harsh as it is, it's just a waste of time, in my view. It's a waste of my time,
So we're
for
actually,
sure.
we're reducing the number of signs on the property. That was our intention of coming in, is to clean up the non-conforming signs and reduce the overall number of signs.
I understand, I do, again, as somebody said earlier, one person's opinion.
In what, Chris, what you're calling a sign, so if there are addresses that are considered signs versus like actual text, you know, you have to weigh what we're calling signs, and I get that, you know, an address can be a sign, but when you're starting to put names on buildings, you're reaching further. So I think everyone wants to work with you guys. I mean, this situation, though, you gotta step back. It's complicated by the other buildings in the site.
Yeah, I think we'll address that issue, I agree completely, and I do not intend and do not want to waste anyone's time. I think there are a handful of examples that have their story behind them in the city, of people that have been able to convince a commission to give them their sign. And so we're coming in here tonight genuinely asking, what are our opportunities to lease this space and to help us be successful in the city? So, you know, the Plunkett Clooney, that sign's been updated recently enough, and as Eric mentioned earlier, if anything's updated, it has to be brought in to conform with the ordinance. So clearly there was an exception made for them. So I understand there's a story behind each one of those situations. I wanted to see if we could be one of those stories too tonight. Clearly that's not gonna happen. But we wanted to understand what the possibilities are. And I understand the Stonebridge building is incredibly overwhelming because you look at all these and you're like, how many signs are they asking for? But if you take a step back and look at it, it's, okay, we're removing a couple of things. We're cleaning up the directories because right now they're scattered all over the place. So, and there previously was actually a tenant's name on a building that we just took off, the Butts Long building, closer to Woodbridge. There was a sign up there for 20 plus years. So we're trying to clean it up. I understand that there's not an appetite for building signs. I will throw that away. I'll tell the tenants it's not happening. The directory signs serve a purpose. It's one at each entrance just to show, you know, hey, you're coming in the correct building. Because again, this one's confusing with the east and the west side. That's why the address numerals were changed instead of it being the two, or almost actually three of them are not visible from Woodward. They're internal to the site. One, faces the retention pond in the woods. This one you have to be where this camera is to see it. So, we're trying to be creative here and help out our tenants, while still respecting the ordinance. And there are exceptions and examples throughout the city that go against the ordinance. That's why we're here asking you guys, what is the art of the possible here?
My example of the U of M sign, where you have something that's set in the back of a building and you've got sort of a sole source entrance or user, look at the circumstances and see if there's something that you can make a convincing case for. You're certainly not going to be putting maize and blue. Commissioner Fisher, not that I have anything about maize and blue, I have two sons that go in school there, but Commissioner Fisher is not only on the planning commission, she's on the city commission. So those are sort of non-starters, but use your circumstance. If you've got like an entry that's principally this one use, maybe you'll get someone's ear here, but don't put them high on buildings, start at a place that's reasonable. Any other comments from anyone?
Other than, I think it would help to have, to the extent you can, gather up an association and
Oh,
some
yeah,
feedback from your other unit, to come in with some kind of agreement, or even just in principle, that we can see that, look, everybody's been contacted here, and this is the feedback that we're getting from everybody. I think that would go a long way towards motivating, to what the chair said, maybe some step-offs from the strict enforcement, right? Because now you've got your other unit owners in support of what you want to do.
The other thing, we've talked about this before too, we set precedent here, right? So whatever we agree to with you, that's public record.
Every building in this.
So all of a sudden now, whatever we agree to, well, you did it.
Yeah.
Yada, 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 right? So I know it sounds like maybe we're being stingy or we're being whatever, but we assume that whatever we agree to, we're ultimately gonna have to do for everyone. Make sense? Sort of, kind of.
Absolutely, and it goes back to, I would love if there was an informal opportunity to brainstorm some ideas. Even if you wanted me to get some of the other struggling landlords in Bloomfield Hills where these empty buildings are sitting, and we could come and sit down and talk about these things. We're, trying to find ways to be successful. The Parkway building alone is multiple millions of dollars a year that's paid on an empty building.
Understood.
So we're trying to be respectful. I didn't think the Parkway building was offensive at all. This one, I understand there's a lot going on. We begged U of M, please do not make us go and ask for maize and blue. Not only because I don't want to see it on my building, but we knew it was going to be a hard shut down there. So I'd love to be a resource to start a conversation or to see if there's any leniency, or any way to get creative on signage in the city of Bloomfield Hills.
Well, you can start with our city manager, who will coordinate, discuss, and
In last thought, the ordinance was reviewed in its entirety in 2015, and we wrestled with all these comments, and that's where comments of, like that architect, Don Paul Young, who came here and said to us in our group, that's the way the city's always been, and I don't think, in other communities we see the names on the buildings emblazoned, there's just not an appetite for that here.
Try to think, this, just think understated elegance.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can come up with something that's understated elegance, you're on the right track.
Yeah, okay. So, does anyone want to offer any other comments? So are we denying this or tabling this, or what are we doing?
I would ask
One caveat, and Commissioner's gonna make a motion. One caveat, though, is you've gotta address the master deed, though, in an honest way.
So we'll make the motion subject to.
Right.
We'll table it, subject to the handling of the master deed.
Right.
Yeah, we won't come back in front of you until that is put to rest and we have to sign off with the other owners. We recognize the city attorney, please.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I just want to clarify, the comments about the master deed, I have not reviewed it yet. There's a lot that goes into a master deed. There may be language in the master deed that doesn't necessarily control at this phase of the development. A lot of it controls, how many units have been sold. I don't know where this development is in the process. So I would caution reaching any conclusion about specific language you may have reviewed in the master deed tonight. I don't know the impact of it in total. So I just wanted to caution that.
Yeah, to your comment, Mark, no one's drawing any conclusions regarding the master deed outside of the fact that Chris said that this property was not encumbered by the master deed. And it looks like it is, and we need to resolve that.
It is encumbered by the master deed, but there's a lot of things that go into the master deed regarding who controls what in the development. So I think there needs to be an analysis of it.
Yep, sure.
That would be part of the application.
So can I confirm with the city manager that is tabling the most efficient way to preserve their interests in coming back here without a new fee and all that?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect.
We make sure, city attorney reviews it and finds it's factual, that needs to be done.
Great, well, I make a motion to table.
Okay, I'm gonna go
Oh,
back
okay,
to,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Arnold's been
Ready.
raising his hand, so,
I defer.
go ahead.
I should like to make a motion that we table this application. And the motion does include and recognizes the discussion we've had here this evening and the discussion from Chris.
Okay, and I'm gonna look to you to second this.
Supplemented by the review of the master deed.
Yes, supplemented by the review of the master deed.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, I do appreciate the feedback.
Good luck.
Thanks, Chris.
Good luck.
Okay. No, wait a second. So that's our last agenda item. However, I want to set aside a minute to recognize two people that are here this evening that are not going to be here at this meeting next year. The first is Lauren. Lauren has been with us the last 2 years. First as Mayor Pro Tem, and then as mayor. So for everyone that understands how all this works, when you're Mayor Pro Tem and mayor, you get to serve a dual role, both on the Planning Commission and the City Commission. And so Lauren has been doing that the last 2 years. And I think you've done a wonderful job.
It's been an honor to be on this commission.
Not only the individual items that come in front of us, but just as mayor in making sure that the Planning Commission,
Thank you very much.
gets its level of
Thank you very much. Love the city.
consideration. But she's still gonna be with us, of
You bet.
course, as our city commissioner.
Continuing on.
So she'll be hammering on us as a city commissioner. And the other one is to Connie. So Connie her term is up this year, and we have 3-year terms. And Connie is elected not to renew her term. And that's a huge loss for the Planning Commission in the city. When I looked at this, I plugged Connie's name in the agenda, in the search box, and it went back to 1988. And in 1988.
Is that year I started the election?
That was, you were on the election commission. You were an election inspector. Elector.
Whatever.
So that's when Connie started donating her time. And then she did that until like 2005 or 2006.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, she joined the ZBA. She was on the ZBA then for 3 years. In 2010, she came on to the planning commissioner. Came on as a planning commissioner.
should write this down, 'cause I don't remember.
That's when we started. I had the privilege of starting to work with Connie back in 2010. And then she did that for a couple of years until she was appointed to the city commission, which she did for a couple of years. And then she came off of the city commission and came back onto the planning commission,
Which is my love.
which
have
is
to
what
admit.
she's been doing, for the last 10, 11 years. And it's not just time spent, but Connie's done just a wonderful job in terms of making valuable contribution. She's put a lot of time into it. She worked on a lot of the ordinances that we see every day. Our tree ordinance, we didn't have a tree ordinance in 2010.
Oh, really?
In 2011, 2012, that's when we wrote the tree ordinance. There was no tree ordinance, and
We studied
Connie
it. We
worked on
studied
that.
other
Yep.
associations.
And the gates, the fences, gates, and walls ordinance.
Yeah, some of that
Spent a
too.
lot of time carving out those rules, actually driving around the city, looking at what people did to make sure that we adjusted our ordinance to what people were doing and what they expected. And so she's done a lot. And
It's all been a privilege.
yeah,
believe
well,
me.
it's been our privilege to work with you. And the city has, on behalf of the city,
Oh, my goodness.
there you go.
Oh, how nice. Wow.
Thank you,
I'm-
Connie.
I think, I don't
Can I
know,
open it?
I don't know. Amy puts all this together. Dave puts all this together.
Oh, is that wonderful? Oh, I love it. Is it graphic? That is beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, that is. Love the hotel.
I love it.
Great job.
It's perfect. My Florida room, I have a wall with some of these on. I'm just gonna go right there.
Great job.
Thank you.
Been a
Thank you
pleasure.
for all
Been a
you've done.
privilege. So, any other parting thoughts here or anything? Have a great holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, everything else. I don't know if anyone has anything else to say, but if not,
Thank you.